Hello and welcome to another episode of the Confident Musician Show. You are listening to 5 pro tips on how to understand trauma and what to do with it. My name is Brett Cusack, aka Megalove, and I'm an artist, musician, and confidence coach. And at The Confident Musician, we help musicians to overcome self-doubt and overwhelm and create more confidence than you ever thought possible, so you can make music and make a difference and share your unique talents with the world. Alrighty, let's jump into our 5 pro tips on understanding trauma and what to do with it. Tip number 1 is no matter what you've done or not done, you are worthy of love. This is an amazing quote by one of my mentors, Dr. John Demartini. And I like to add to that, it's not no matter what you've done or not done, will do or won't do, you're still worthy of love. So the key with this tip is that whatever happens, what does that happen to you, whatever you did or didn't do, there's a reason why you're here. And the meaning that you're worthy of love is that you need to continue on the journey until you find the hidden blessings in whatever has happened to you, and find your unique path. Tip number 2, it is not what happens to us, it's what we make it mean. And it couldn't have happened any other way anyway, because it didn't, which is an amazing quote by Crone. And so an example of that is that I always felt as a kid growing up misunderstood. So even though I knew my parents loved me, it's like they were always talking at me instead of to me. And then I left at home and I got into school, and it's like all my teachers were teaching at me instead of to me. No one really understood my unique values and the way I saw the world. And as a result of that, I was like, well, maybe I'm not worthy of people really understanding and appreciate me. And so I potentially created a wound where I wasn't good enough. And so therefore, I then went through the world with this story, I'm not good enough, it doesn't matter that, no one understands me, I'm not good enough. And then I see the world through that way of seeing the world, and then it doesn't matter what happens, I always still feel like I'm good enough. Even though I've got a music degree, I've got a teaching diploma, I've got 34 songs on Spotify now, I still sometimes have these stories, and I'm just like, where does this actually come from? So it's always starting to create a curiosity about what these feelings and emotions are happening inside us, and starting to become aware of them so that we can then start to change them. Tip number 3 is our brain's primary purpose is to keep us safe. So we don't see the world as it actually is, we see it as we are. And this is called a confirmation bias. So as I went through the world, I'm like, no one understands me, I'm not good enough. I just kept going through this experience of the world, experiencing these exactly the same experiences. So therefore I'm like, this is the way life is. So if we do have a story or a limiting belief, we're more likely to perceive things in alignment with that, as opposed to actually going, hang on a minute, who did understand me? And as a result of not being understood, did I learn how to understand myself? So that's, I just lost where I am. If we have a story or limiting belief, we are more likely to perceive things in a certain way in alignment with that story, and then take actions in that direction. So I want to start to understand what my perceptions are that I'm experiencing in the world, and the stories that I'm telling myself, so that I can then start to change them. Tip number 4 is all of life is in duality, which means that you can't have something in your perception negative happen without its opposing positive thing happening to the same degree. So for me, not being understood created a situation in my life where it drove me to want to understand. And that's why I became an educator. And then I went and studied education, and I was like, I still feel misunderstood. So that's when I started learning human behavior, and I started learning about my values and my voids and my vision. I started to understand that the only person that really needs to understand me is me. And then now I've created a space for people just like you watching this video to actually come and understand. So I'm now very grateful that I felt misunderstood, because it now has created a situation where I now help other people understand. And I wouldn't want that to happen. I wouldn't want that to be any other way, because it's created who I am now. So now I'm very grateful for that experience. Another example of this is because my dad worked his butt off when I was a kid, working 6 days a week, maybe 7 days a week, to be out there actually creating a safe environment, or a physically safe environment for us to grow up in. I then made that mean that work and money was more important than me. So now understanding that realization helped me to start to realize that I then had to actually learn how to value myself and learn how to, when I become a father, which is something my partner and I are working on at the moment, to create a situation where I get to do what I love, I get to provide for my family, but I also get to enjoy that experience. So I'm very grateful for my dad doing that and showing me that he loves me in the best way that he could. And now that gave me my purpose and my vision to actually be able to do more of what it is that I love. So always become curious about what's actually happening for you and actually to look for both sides of all these events. Because the key is then, because you feel insignificant and then you go out in the world and you want to be a famous rock star, and then you realize that when you become a famous rock star, that doesn't solve your problem either. And then you're like, I thought I've done everything that I was supposed to do that I thought would solve my issue inside, but there's only one way to do that, and that's to actually go inside. All right, yes, so become curious about the hidden blessings that this event has actually helped you with. And doing that is probably one of the most powerful things that you can do, because it helps you become present and you're not looking off into the fantasies in the future and trying to avoid these nightmares of the past. And tip number 5 is to get a coach, mentor, counselor, facilitator, therapist to actually help you learn to love yourself no matter what, because you are worth it. And that's why I've created my latest training, which is called Confidence and Happiness Secrets for Musicians. You can get that on the link below this video. All right, let's go into our TLDR. Just to recap our top 5 tips. Number 1, our 5 pro tips. Tip number 1 is no matter what you've done or not done, will do or won't do, you are worthy of love. Thank you so much, John Demartini, for helping me learn to love and appreciate myself so that I can actually create this amazing content for you guys to help you on your journey. Tip number 2, it's not what happens to you or to us, it's what we make it mean. So learning to see and understand that these things, these meanings that we've made out of our story are actually there to actually serve us and to help us. And once we start to see they're actually on the way instead of in the way, then we can actually transcend that and actually become grateful for our lives instead of being resentful and carrying around all this baggage that doesn't serve us. And the key is that we can't change what happened, we can only change what we make it mean. So learning how to do that. Tip number 3 is our brain's primary purpose is to keep us safe, and we see the world as we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. So when our brain has had a strategy from the past that has worked for us, so say for me, not wanting to feel left out, I don't necessarily want to do things like do performances or sing and perform live or write songs and release my original music, because I'm like, what happens if people don't like it? What happens if I get kicked out of the songwriting tribe? And therefore we never actually do the thing that we need to do in order to get better at it. So learning that your brain is trying to keep you safe, and sometimes when we're trying to do things that we need to do in order to move forward in our careers, it's not actually helping us anymore. So start to become aware of those things and be curious about why we do and don't do things. Tip number 4 is all of life is in duality. You can't have a pain without a pleasure, and you can't have a pleasure without a pain. And so basically starting to become aware of those things and starting to choose moving in the direction based on which pain that you want, because you want to tackle inspiring challenges and move forward in your life doing the things that you actually want to do. So become very curious about those hidden blessings, about anything that you perceive as being difficult, out of order, missing, lost, a loss without a gain, more pain than pleasure, because that is set you free. Tip number 5 is to get a coach, mentor, or counselor that has help you learn to love yourself no matter what you have done or not done, will do or won't do. And if you are curious about maybe having a chat with me about whether I can help you along your journey, you can book a Q&A on the link below this video. And it's 15 minutes for us just to have a chat about what's actually happening in your world, where do you want to go, and maybe what are some of the problems and challenges you're facing, so that we can actually create a plan about moving forward. So it's a free call. I do have limited spots, so make sure you book in as quick as you can to get a spot. Alrighty, thanks so much for watching this video. If you found something useful, interesting, valuable, or funny, curious, interesting, type it in the chat box below. And if you know somebody else that could benefit from watching these videos, please share that with them in a DM or tag them in this video if that makes sense to you. And I've loved this. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you on the next video. Catch you later. Make music, make a difference. Bye-bye.